Uh, I am Pranav Dave here,
Good morning, sir.
associate professor in the Department of English, and Dr. Maulik Vyas is with us, and he is going to speak on Introduction to Indian Darsana's Theory of Knowledge. So, very good morning to one and all. Very good morning to Dr. Vyas.
Good morning.
And before we begin, am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. You are.
Am I visible?
Yeah, you are visible and audible, sir.
You are not audible to us.
Just a
Yes.
minute, sir.
Hello.
Uh, I'm figuring out the configuration, sir. Hello.
Yes, now you are audible.
Okay.
So
Thank you,
there
sir.
is no big problem. Uh, Before we begin this session, let me introduce Dr. Maulik Vyas to our student participants. Dr. Maulik Vyas completed his master's, MPhil, NET and PhD in the subject of English literature. He works as an assistant professor of English at Government Engineering College, Bhuj, Gujarat. His areas of interest and publication include literary theory, translation, Indic studies, and anthropology. He is the author of Literature as Knowledge in Indian and Western Traditions, Theory of Knowledge, Literary Taxonomy and Aesthetics, published in 2022 by Notion Press, and the co-author of Technical Communication, MCQ, published in 2021 by INSC Publishers. He has acted as a copy editor for Encyclopedia of Hinduism, 11 volumes, published by Rupa Delhi, 2012, and Mandal Publishers, USA, 2013. Dr. Maulik Vyas has translated books on culture anthropology, namely Ahuti, published by Praveen Prakashan Private Limited, and Critical Study of Adivashi Folk Literature in Print with Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, New Delhi. He has translated several critical and creative writings from Gujarati and Hindi into English. He has contributed as a translator for the project of People's Linguistic Survey of India conducted by Bhasha Research and Publication Center. Recently, Dr. Vyas has contributed by translating Gujarati critical writing to the book titled Critical Discourse in Gujarati, which is edited by a noted Gujarati scholar, Sri Sitanshu Yashashchandra, published by Routledge USA and UK in 2024. Dr. Vyas, on behalf of the student participants, on my personal behalf, and on behalf of my department, we welcome you. And, sir, now I hand over to you, and uh, let us enlighten our students with your knowledge of darshanas. It's a great pleasure to listen to Indian philosophy, darshanas. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Dear students, good morning to you all. Now, this topic, when I was roped into this subject to speak about pramanas, particularly the valid and invalid means of cognition, it occurred to me that just one uh, session with all the contents therein wouldn't do justice to the purpose here, that is of understanding and explanation of the content. So I propose that we devise this topic into two. The first part today would be to introduce the theoretical framework within which the components of logic that we are going to discuss. So the broader framework will give us a necessary background to understand how and uh, uh, with what modalities each school of thought begins to inquire about this system of uh, rational investigation. All right. So today, I do not want to put you on a spree of slides. Rather, I would limit myself to a very handful number of slides and will try to uh, explicate and understand the basic terms, conceptual categories. And based on that, in the next session, we'll talk about the nitty-gritty, the particulars of the contents of Indian logic. All right. So this is the preamble to what I wanted to share with you. Now, let us begin with the slide. Give me some moment so that I find out, because I'm new to the Zoom platform, because in our college we are used to the Microsoft. I think from share I get desktop. Just a moment. Is the screen visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. All right. So to begin with, first, the term darshana. Literally speaking, this term also means what we understand in the present context is to view, to look, to see, darshan. All right. It means demonstration. Now, often it is loosely translated as philosophy.
सर पीपीटी चालू नहीं हुआ है.
Uh, somehow it shows on with my interface.
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, first you do one thing. Just start the PPT first and then share it. You can able to show the PPT.
My presentation is open on my screen.
Yeah,
And
now you can share. Now you can click on share. Somewhere you can see Microsoft.
pardon. Just a moment. All right, so now there is this share. All right, now it shows the screen. Is it there now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Great. All right, thank you very much. And thank you for putting up this file. All right, so this term darshan is not exactly the substitute of the term philosophy. If you look at the Greek term philosophy, it is mentation, love for wisdom, philos and sophia from the Greek roots. Well, the term darshan brings in a lot more to it. The term that we actually understand as philosophy in Indian counterpart is Anvikshaki. Okay, now what is Anvikshaki? Anvikshaki, the term, if you look at the roots, Anu and Iksha. So that is the uh, contemplation of what is observed of the phenomenal world, what has been part of one's experience, study, and exploration. So that is more like an introspection of the observed world. It is a psychological act. It is a mental act, right? So Anvikshaki is relatively closer to the term philosophy. Well, but if we look at the term darshana, darshana is a larger category. It involves Anvikshaki. Each, there are many darshanas. Each darshana has its own uh, way of theorizing, and it involves systematic exposition of metaphysics, cosmogony, epistemology, ontology, time calculation, causation, and lifestyle practices, which are in sync with nature. Now, I'll pause here for explaining these terms here. What do we mean by darshana involving these fields? So metaphysics, well, uh, it's a broader subject. It includes understanding the way nature comes into being, the origination of the phenomenal world, the interrelations between the uh, phenomena of the material world, the end of life or the purpose of life. These questions would be discussed in the uh, field of metaphysics. So in general terms, what we say, the outlook towards life, how certain civilization tries to understand life, would be then part of metaphysics. Now, cosmogony is the field where they discuss about the origin of universe and the subsequent development of the universal uh, spatial bodies and how the evolution takes place. So that is part of cosmogony. Epistemology. Episteme in Greek root means knowledge. Logos means study. So it's a branch of study in philosophy which talks about how do we derive knowledge and what is the validity of what we know. Is it right or not? How do we ascertain that we know is right? So that is the concern of epistemology. Ontology is the study of the nature of entities or beings, how things exist in this world as phenomena and how do they interrelate with one another. And That is very pragmatic and empiricist approach to study the world as it is. Now, time calculation is something that we do not as such find in the Western counterpart of philosophies, but here in the Indian darshana systems, each darshana would have its own understanding of time. Even today in physics, what time is quite an enigma. I mean, scientists still want to figure out how to understand time in the quantum sense, in the material sense, and of course the causation. So this is about theorizing how cause and effect come into being and what is their relation, because causation, understanding causation will give us the understanding of the physical world. So you say physics is studied and predicated on the understanding of causation. In the West, David Hume had challenged this position and called that the entire science of physics is nothing but the sense of sentiments that one feels about the physical world. That is more sentimental than physical, the actual study of physics. That was according to David Hume, because he was challenging the very notion of causation. And even in quantum mechanics, when you study uh, the micro, the minute world, the nano world of the atoms or the atomic entities, the Newtonian mechanics fails there, because the laws of Newtonian mechanics won't hold uh, to describe the principle of causation uh, at micro or nano level. All right, so causation is understood in philosophy. It is very much part of physics, and so much so to say that in everything that we understand as common sense world depends on our understanding of causation. And last but never the least, darshana involves lifestyle practices. So it is not just uh, mentation. It is not just that a darshana gives you a set of ideas, there is ideation only. But on the other hand, darshana gives us a particular way of guidelines, the way of living. Now, whether you are following Shakta Darshana or Pancharatra Vaishnav Darshana or Shaivite Darshana, so it will, or say Sankhya Darshana, it will involve, or Yoga Darshana, it will involve certain lifestyle. So Darshana is the school of Indian thought is very much practical. It is not just theory, you know. Uh, so Darshana is unique in that it has uh, particular calculation of time, the understanding of time at micro and macro levels, and lifestyle. So this is how darshana is, and it has developed over millennia. All right. I am not at all going into the antiquity of darshanas because that is not our subject here. And the timelines that we find on internet or on Wikipedia are largely based on the popular narratives of Indian history, which I personally do not find uh, convincing. To say that, for example, NCRT says that the uh, Vedas period belongs to 1500 BCE, when the Aryans came to the Indian part. These dates don't match with our uh, archaeological findings. These dates don't match with our oceanographic readings that we have with us. And of course, they don't match with our internal evidence that we find in our texts. All right. So I'm not going into the antiquity of darshanas, but just to give you a hint how old they may be, uh, I would say that just from where I sit, from 120 kilometers, there is a place called Dholavira, which is an IVC site, Indian Valley, Indus Valley Civilization site. And we go there, we find that the Archaeological Survey of India has done the uh, survey there. From the excavation, they found that there have been 3 different maturation period for the city to develop, and that dates back to the uh, time depth of 6,000 years. So that is an actual archaeological finding, and these darshanas, uh, whether they pertain to IVC era or before that, is still subject to study. All right. Moving ahead, these are the darshanas that we have commonly known uh, to the academia and the scholars and those who study. So the Sankhya school, it's very ancient system. Even in the Mahabharata, we find the mention in the text of Mahabharata. We find the mention of Sankhya Darshan, Yog Darshan, Pancharatra, Pashupat. All right, so these are pretty ancient systems. Sankhya, as it stands for Sankhya, it talks about the origination of the universe, and the entire thesis is based on Pradhan and Prakriti, Purush and Prakriti. So it is a dualistic approach to understand the origin of the world, origin of the universe. And it is very theoretical in nature, if I say so. Following that, there is yoga. Now, Patanjali is not the one. Patanjali is not the one who uh, uh, invented yoga. Before Patanjali, yoga was in practice, but Patanjali systematized yoga. So, if you look at the text of Yoga Sutra, the first sutra is Atha Yoganushasanam. Atha means now, which means to say that before we have done the theory part, we have understood the concepts of life, of origin of the universe, of the life practices. Now we come to the practice part, the actual practice part. So Atha Yoganushasanam. So of course, yoga has been in practice for long, but with Patanjali, it was for the first time recorded in the Sutric style. Pancharatra, or also called the Vaishnav Mat. Pancharatra is Agam-based discourse, and it has Pancharatra, Nakulesh, and Shakta. These 3 have very much great contribution to the development of the Tantra tradition in India. Okay, coming to the next one is Nyaya. Nyaya, propounded by Gautam Rishi. That stands for logic, the school of logic. Now, what we are going to discuss in the following session would be based much on Nyaya and Vaisheshika, because these 2 are empirical schools. By empiricism, I mean that the reliance on the observable and the observed. Okay, so the Nyaya school is logical in its approach, and Vaisheshika develops from the Nyaya school, but it focuses more on the physics part of the study. So that is, you can say, atomic school of study in Indian counterpart. Charvak is another empirical school. We also call it Lokayat. Now they are hardcore empiricists, so they do not leave any iota of doubt about hereafter. What I mean to say is that they believe in one life only. They do not believe in any esoteric meaning or purpose of life, that what is hereafter. You might have heard about yavat jivet sukham jivet runam krutva kritam pivet. So this statement, so long as you live happily, even if you have to incur debt, but enjoy ghee, the purified butter, So that was the statement that we have from Charvak actually literally means one who speaks charu, one who speaks sweetly. All right, Mimamsa. Mimamsa Sutras were from Jaimini. Now, this darshana is both theistic and non-theistic. Okay, what it means is that one set of school believes in the authority of the Vedas and the tattva of Ishwar, but the other subset of school believes in the primacy of karma, and they won't go into the inquiry of the Ishwar tattva. Now, this Mimamsa means critical exegesis. In simple terms, if I am to translate Mimamsa, it would be exegesis, critical analysis, right? So Mimamsa develops on the Vedic discourse, but with two different approaches, theistic and non-theistic. The next is Arhata or Jain, Bauddha. Now, they are called Nastik darshanas. Nastik because they question Vedas, because they do not believe in the propositions of the Brahma as propounded by Veda, and they follow the Shramana tradition. Now, Shramana literally means somebody who puts in a lot of toil and effort in one's process of spiritual evolution. So, Shramana tradition would focus more on the individual karma. Okay, next is Kashmir Shaivism or Pratyabhigna, also called a Trik. This is a later development in the system, but Kashmir Shaivism flourished mostly in the northern part of India. Even today, we don't have good number of authoritative scholars on the system. The last noted scholars were Lakshman Ju. Even today, there is a Lakshman Ju Academy going on. And Jaidev Singh was the person who translated a lot of Kashmir Shaivite texts into English with the help of Lakshman Ju. Well, Kashmir Shaivism, you might have heard of Abhinav Gupta from those who have studied Indian poetics. Abhinav Gupta was the one who wrote Abhinav Bharati, a commentary on Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, who also wrote Tantra Lok. It's a multiple volume, huge text. Well, he was the proponent and follower and say a Siddha in the Kashmir Shaivite tradition, Pratyabhigna tradition. So it begins with the theoretical exegesis like Sankhya, involves yoga, and in the process, it almost becomes a tantric yoga. By tantric yoga, I mean that it involves the Bij mantras, certain rituals, certain practices, and systematizes that. So Kashmir Shaivite darshan is conglomeration of a number of approaches to the realization of divinity. There is then Advait Vedant and Dvait Vedant. Well, the Vedanta discourse is very popular. Ramakrishna Mission has popularized Advait Vedant to a great extent in this country. And that is a monotheistic understanding of the Brahma based on Vedic texts. Well, going further, we have Shiva Siddhant, Vyakaraniya Darshan, and Raseswar Vad. It belongs, the last one pertains to the Shaiva Mat, but primarily focuses on the alchemy and the chemicals. So it is also called the Mercurial school of thought. These are major darshanas, each approaching the principle of divinity in its own right, sometimes questioning, sometimes accepting. And in the process of doing so, they will require a rigorous logical method that we call Pramana Shastra. So each darshana would have its own system of logic. All right. So we just can't loosely say that Indian logic. We have to say Indian logic of which school, because each school has its own method. Number two, each school uses terms and conceptual categories in their own right. They sometimes interpret and transvalue the term. For example, in Nyaya school, when we talk about Anuman, so there is a concept of Vyapti. We'll see that now Vyapti means that between two things there is a natural and necessary concomitance, right? For example, uh, uh, the uh, the entity of sun and the heat. I mean, the solar urja cannot be the solar power cannot be separated from the heat. The element of heat is very much inherent, resident in the solar energy. So there is vyapti, natural, necessary concomitance. But the term vyapti in Kashmir Shaivism will mean different. In Kashmir Shaivism, vyapti would be permeation or pervasion of the swatantra or free will of Shiva. All right, so they transvalue. This is just an example to give you. So the transvalue means they change the value, the meaning of the term itself. So each darshana would employ certain terms, but it is very likely that their meaning, their basic import would be different. So when we look into these darshanas, we also need to know their canonical usage of the terms. Going ahead, this is just for our information that Shaivism has number of other subfolds within it. And usually we just know about the Puranic Shaivism, but we have from the non-Puranic sources Atimarg and Mantramarg. And Atimarg goes into Pashupat Shaivism, Lakulish, Kaulmukh, Lingayat. Now, Pashupat Shaivism is almost extinct in the present times, but we do have Lingayat tradition surviving in the south of our country. Then we have Kaul and Trik. As I said, Trik is Pratyabhigna or Kashmir Shaivism, but Kashmir Shaivism has unfortunately died out. We do have the text, we do have the discourse, but we don't have the living tradition of the great scholars and the research students working in that tradition. Kaul Siddhant is pretty much alive in the West Bengal and the eastern part of our country. Kaul Marg is one of the paths of Tantra, but it is in the strict Guru Shishya Parampara. It survives in its own way and one of the secret paths of Tantra. All right, going ahead. We now try to understand Anvikshaki with a little more detail to the term. So Anvikshaki is a logical reasoning first. It's a science of inquiry, and each darshana has its own way of doing it. Okay. Variously, it is also called Hetu Shastra, Tarka Shastra, or Pramana Vidya. So if you come across the terms like Hetu Shastra or Tark Shastra or Praman Vidya, we know that we are in the field of Anvikshaki. Then, from Vedic perspective, Anvikshaki also referred to Atma Vidya, because primarily the Vedic discourse is about realization of self. So the ultimate goal of life is that. So whatever you employ in that process would be Atma Vidya. But later on, by the time we reach Nyaya, Vaisheshika, and the Nastik Darshanas, Anvikshaki becomes stipulated in its meaning as a technical term. It literally means the theoretical meditation part, which focuses more on logic. Now, each darshana employs its logical reasoning in its framework of metaphysics, cosmogony, time calculation, conceptual categories, way of life, and self-realization or goal of life. Okay, so we need to be clear that for each darshana, the Anvikshaki would be very much tailor-made and customized according to the premise that a darshan holds. All right. Now, to be more specific with Anvikshaki, we discuss Pramana Vidya. What do we mean when we say that Pramana Vidya as a discipline needs to be studied and understood? So Pramana Vidya, if you look at the term, first we encounter certain terms that we need to know, to be clear with, such as Prama, Gyan, Aprama, and Avidya. These are pretty much coterminous terms. By coterminous, I mean they share boundaries. All right. These terms should not be used interchangeably. All right. They are very technically precise terms. So Prama is right cognition. By cognition, I mean bodh. Okay. And by cognition, I mean the perception that we develop through our sense organs and through our smriti, recollection of our sense perception. And when it is right, when it is unwavering, without blemish or fault, we call it Prama. It is differentiated from Gyan. Gyan as a general term would mean even the input from Kalpana, that is imagination. Gnan would be knowledge, be it Prama or Aprama. Okay. So Gyan is slightly liberal term compared to Prama. Aprama is the exact counter opposite of Prama, and that which is disputable, that which is self-undoing in its own logic, is Aprama. The fourth category is Avidya, which is quite an interesting term, because usually we translate Avidya as ignorance. But dear friends, Avidya is strictly speaking not ignorance. You know, the prefix A stands for the difference, stands for separation, that which is different from Vidya. So what is Vidya then? One proposition is Sa Vidya Ya Vimukte. Vidya is that which gives you freedom from the shackles of life and death, from the Maya, the veil of Maya. And what is Maya? Maya in Vedanta is understood as measurable and relative reality. So again, Maya is not illusion. To call Maya illusion would be very wrong. You know, it is reality which is measurable and which is relative. Now, when knowledge is affected by the relativity of the fact, the limitedness of the fact, that it is bound to certain time and space, that qualifies for avidya. That knowledge which gives us the understanding of differentiated reality. Please understand this. Let me repeat. That knowledge which gives us the understanding of differentiated reality, such as I, me, mine, you, yours. So it is, Dvaita Bhav. There is this subject-object duality is what qualifies for avidya. So for that matter, whatever we study, be it literature, mathematics, engineering, medicine, in this world, whatever we study for our ajivika practically falls into avidya. So avidya is not ignorance, but avidya is known vidya, I would say. All right. The moment we try to see uh, the unitary principle of Sat, the divinity, then we are moving forward to the domain of Vidya. Well, I'm explaining this from the context of Vedic Darshanas. This is how Vedic Darshana would interpret Vidya and Avidya. Okay. The next term is Pramatra. Pramatra means the knower. The third term is Prameya. So we need to know these concepts with what they are known in the Indian knowledge system. So Prameya is the object of valid cognition. So what we want to explore, our object of inquiry would be Prameya, the object of inquiry that we want to establish in valid cognition. Then Satya in the form of objective to be established turns into Prameya. Okay, so Prameya would lead us to Satya, and it is very formal process of arriving at Satya, because we will look at the structure part of argument and the content part of argument, and then we decide that okay, this is a proposition that does not contradict in itself. Then we say that okay, this is a reliable statement. Then we start accepting its validity. So Prameya would be that. All right. Praman, what does it mean? Praman means the instrumental causes that we employ, the means, but they are right means. So when right means are employed in the inquiry of truth, then the truth claim will have a chance to be accepted. In the absence of employment of pramanas, truth claims may not be accepted. All right. And this we will talk about in the next session when we are talking about Khyativad. Because see, when you talk about right knowledge, you also need to know what is not right knowledge. So Pramana Vidya is the theory of right knowledge of Prama, and Khyativad is the theory of Aprama, or not right knowledge. All right. So we'll have both these strains of discourse going on simultaneously, Praman and Khyativad in each darshana. Okay. So Praman Vidya then would mean for us methods of knowing. It will involve the role of the knower or the scope of inquiry, validity of knowledge, and of course, theories of causation. So Praman Vidya is the summum bonum of all this. It is the sum total of all these counterparts. And a Praman theory is that which logically speculates and theorizes about causal modes that help cognize phenomena in a valid manner. So causal mode means there has to be a cause and effect relationship. Only then we can logically explain the postulations over there, right? So Praman theory will not work in absentia of causality. Please be clear about this. We cannot have Praman theory just based on speculation. Praman theory or the logical investigation is not kalpanic. It is pretty much empirical. It is pretty much evidence-based inquiry into the claims of validity. Okay. Next in our slide is there are these primary terms. When we start understanding Praman Vidya, then we come across these primary terms. Some of these primary terms are asked as such in your NET exam. Let us familiarize ourselves with this conceptual categories. So the first is pratyaksha, prati aksha, that which is in front of the senses. It is also said that pratyaksham kim pramanam, whatever that is direct, whatever that is self-evident in front of us does not need more proof. It means that, all right? That is direct perception. The general division is that pratyaksha could be savikalp or nirvikalp. So when I, for example, cognize an object, I see that, I can touch that through my five senses, I can measure that up, all right? And then I know what it is. What do I mean by knowing it is? Knowing a substance involves knowing naam, roop, gun, karma, or its action. So when I know about something in terms of its name, its form, its qualities, and its action, so I know about that substance, all right? That is the savikalp understanding. Now, if I may digress for a while and take you to Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. So certain sages go to Bharat Muni and they put a question to him. So rasa ka padartha, you know, they use the word padarth. Padarth is a technical term in Indian logic. Padarth is substance which can be qualified by naam, roop, gun, and kriya. All right. So they want to understand the aesthetic principle ras in terms of its name, its form, its qualities, and how do they come about and act. And then the famous Rasa Sutra, Vibhav Anubhav Vyabhichari Sanyogat Ras Nishpatti. All right. So in Natya Shastra, the term that is used to inquire about ras is padarth, and that is the savikalp inquiry into padarth of ras. Now, nirvikalp is when we are not sure of all these components. So that would be the nirvikalp understanding of the object which is in front of the sense perception. Okay, Dharmakirti, later on, Dharmakirti, who was Dharmakirti? Dharmakirti is 6th or 7th century Buddhist scholar, and he worked in the then famous Nalanda University, and he was a major epistemologist of the Buddhist fold and a great critique of Mayan Buddhist tradition. Well, he further divides Pratyaksha Praman into 4, and he proposed that there should be Indriya Pratyaksha, Manas Pratyaksha, Swavedan Pratyaksha, and Yoga Pratyaksha. Just to translate it quickly, Indriya Pratyaksha is that which is in front of the sense organs. Manas Pratyaksha is the mental perception. Swavedan Pratyaksha is the direct cognition through self-consciousness. and Yog Pratyaksh is the direct perception of an object through heightened consciousness. All right. But Pratyaksha is a major category. The second is Anuman. Okay. Now, Anuman cannot exist without Pratyaksh. There has to be the empirical actual base, and Pratyaksha alone cannot guarantee the truth claim of the experience. So it must then develop into proper Anuman. So both go hand in hand. See, all these categories uh, are not absolutes in themselves. Alone, they do not vouch for the validity of the experience. Because what is Praman Vidya? Praman Vidya is to tell you that what you know is right. How do we know that what we know is right? So we employ these tactics, these methods. The first being Pratyaksha, but then it is not sufficient unto itself. It will be in need of the further assistance from the other modes of inquiry. So then Anuman develops from Pratyaksha, it is inference, but there are 5 constituents of Anuman. The first being Pratigna. Now we have some technical terms. Again, please note this down in your exam. Sometimes these terms may be asked standalone in their own denotative meaning. All right, so Pratigna is proposition. Well, it comprises 2 parts, Sadhya and Paksha. So Sadhya is the idea that we want to prove or disprove, and Paksha is the object on which Sadhya is based. You don't right now worry about this. We'll have examples of all of these one by one. But right now, my focus is just to introduce these concepts, these terms. We'll exemplify them and go into it in the following one. But right now, the idea is that you familiarize yourself with these terms and how are they to be actually understood in the Nyaya and Vaisheshik tradition. Hetu would stand for reasoning, sometimes also understood as in the poetics, understood as means. Okay, next is Udaharan or Drashtant. Now, this has to be a familiar example. So when you propose something, you have to vouch for that with some familiar example. Okay, something that somebody can relate with. Now, Upanaya. Upanaya is application. The meaning of Upanaya, the word is made up of 2 dhatus, up and naya. As in Upanishad, to sit near, beside the Guru. Up means near and naya means to bring, something that brings you closer. So in general terms, something that brings home the idea. So when you do the application part, you bring home the idea that your piece of logic, the argument that you want to prove, becomes clear to the reader or to the audience with your application part. And Nigamana is conclusion. Okay. Now, in this Vyapti that I just discussed a couple of minutes back, that in Nyaya system, Vyapti is the necessary inherence, concomitance. It's a basic principle in the category of Anuman that underscores mutual expectancy and inherence between 2 things. For example, fire and smoke. So there is causality. Fire and smoke, they naturally permeate in terms of qualities. They naturally permeate into each other, into one another. And where there is fire, there is smoke. Or where there is smoke, we assume there is fire. All right. So there is this natural contiguity between these 2 occurrences that we call Vyapti. Upaman as a technical term would mean analogy. It has 3 components. Upameya, Upaman, and Samanya. So Upameya is subject of comparison, Upaman is object of comparison, and Samanya is commonality of attributes. Now, if these three conditions are fulfilled, then Upaman is accepted as a valid means. Now, let me give you an example from Bhamaha's 7th century, Bhamaha's text Kavyalankar. Now, he talks about the fitness of Upaman, or when Upaman becomes a fit example of Alankar as a literary device. When is Upaman valid in terms of its subject of comparison and object of comparison? So he gives an example, and in that example, it says that the king chased away the army with such bravery as a dog would chase away the flock of sheep. Okay. Now, look at this. The king chased away the army, the opponent's army, as bravely as a dog would chase away the herd of sheep. Now, this comparison is a misfit comparison because the king is compared with a dog. Now, the subject of comparison and the object of comparison, they don't match. So the commonality of attributes have to be ascertained before the comparison is made. Otherwise, it won't be a fit case of Upman. Of course, unless the context is hilarious or the context is to make a ridicule, context would justify the comparison, but the analogy must satisfy the fitness of the components. The next is Shabda or verbal testimony. By Shabda, we mean the Vedic discourse. Now, remember that the Vedas are the oral texts. They are apaurushaya texts. By apaurushaya, I mean they do not have the human agency of authorship and doership. This is what is accepted and understood in the Indian knowledge system. So Vedas are not written by one person or certain group of people. Just like we print the books with our authorship, they were mantra drashtas. These people, in their heightened consciousness, became instruments to receive the Brahma. That is accepted as verbal testimony. Or Shabda could mean Aptavani. Aptavani stands for a resource person who is reliable, whose words are as true as Vedic discourse. So, there is in this knowledge system the liberty to accept the truth claims of an Arsh Purush, Arsh, or I would say the self-realized person's status in terms of validity of claim is as much as the Vedic discourse. All right, and they don't mutually exclude. Okay, the next is Arthapatti, and this term means circumstantial implication or postulation. Don't be confused by this technical explanation. It is Arthapatti is a very common sense principle. For example, if you start from Rajkot to reach Ahmedabad, it will take 4 hours. Okay, and after 4 hours, your friend has started from Rajkot to Ahmedabad, and after 4 hours, you might assume that your friend would have reached Ahmedabad. What is it? Okay, this is derivation from circumstance. You derive from the circumstance and understanding until proven otherwise. That is Arthapatti. Okay, so this is a common sense understanding of the circumstantial implication. Anupalabdhi is non-presence or negative cognitive proof. For example, to say that there is no air condition in the room is an example of non-perception, because we don't perceive one in the room. Okay, so these terms pratyaksha, anuman, upaman, shabda, arthapatti, anupalapti, all of these would be used by different darshanas in certain combinations, and then they will debate about how to employ that and what to make out of it. All right, so these are primary terms of praman vidyas, and you would find them in the discussions of each of these darshanas. Okay, so now let us look at the accepted number of pramanas in each darshana. So to begin with, Taittiriya Samhita, that is from the Vedic fold, we come to find Pratyaksha, Smriti. Smriti here stands for Vedic. Remember that the Vedas are oral. And when I say oral, please do not understand it with some, uh, the feeling of uh, lesser importance. Uh, what I mean to say is that the oral text of Veda is more scientifically construed, preserved, and disseminated than the printed technology, that the technology of printing words that we have with us. Right. It has a very systematic patha parampara. It has very systematic certain Vedangas to understand the constituents of the text. So whatever we receive through the oral tradition is part of Smriti. So Smriti is an accepted means over here. Aiti here is the Aptavani or expert testimony. It would also mean the tradition or that which is conventionally held by the darshana systems, the other darshana systems. And here by tradition, we are actually involving the agamic traditions of Pancharatra, Shaivite, and Shakta fold. And Anuman. So Anuman is, of course, the natural follow-up if we are accepting Pratyaksha. Charvak would accept only Pratyaksha, nothing else, because he is a hardcore empiricist. All right, so we don't see any uh, esoterization of the discourse there with Charvak. With Vaisheshika, we have just two means, Pratyaksha and Anuman. Vaisheshik does not accept any more than these two. Nyay, the school of logic, would involve Pratyaksha Praman, Anuman Praman, Upaman Praman, and Shabda Praman. Okay. Then we go on to Sankhya and Yoga and Vishisht Advait and Dvait Vedanta, where they accept three means of right cognition: Pratyaksha, Anuman, and Shabda. Prabhakar Mimamsa would involve Pratyaksha. Now, say Mimamsa, there are two folds. Jaimini's Mimamsa Sutra is the pioneering discourse, but based on that, the two Mimamsa schools flourished, Prabhakar and Kumaril. And their approach primarily differed from each other in terms of understanding the verbal meaning of the word and the sentential meaning in a discourse. And this is the basic premise wherefrom they depart in their inquiry into the pramanas. Okay, so Prabhakar Mimamsa involves Pratyaksha, Anuman, Upaman, Shabda, and Arthapatti. But Kumaril Bhatt accepts all of this, even Advait, but they would add Anupalapti as the sixth means. Arhat, that is Jaina discourse, would involve Pratyaksha, Anuman, and Shabda. And by Shabda, in the Jaina discourse, we mean their agamas. Okay. And in both the discourse, we have the direct perception, the inference, and sometimes the verbal testimony. When I say sometimes, because certain schools of Buddhist fold contest the involvement of uh, uh, textual testimony. In the Buddhist testimony, we are talking about textual testimony, and there are differences in the Buddha mat. Okay, now there are two major stands that each of these schools hold. One is called intrinsic truth theory, and the other is called extrinsic truth theory. What do I mean by this? By Swata Pramanya or intrinsic truth theory, it is proposed that the truth claim of an experience can be veridical, can be verified only from its own premise. Means the truth is something that is self-validating. From its own premise, it has to be true. Those schools that adopt this position are Sankhya, Mimamsa, Vedant, Jain, and Shantarakshita's Bodhvad when it is talking about the experience of phenomenal world. On the other hand, Nyaya school, the Buddhist school, they say that no, we need more evidence to say that certain experience is valid unto itself is not just sufficient. It must have the uh, support from the causality. It must have support from the external evidence. That is called Partha Pramanya. So this is their approach to finding out the truth claim would uh, set out uh, from the external and internal investigation of the truth claims. Okay, so these are the two major compartments in which they launch their inquiries. Their basic assumption would differ from the beginning while launching their inquiry into the truth claims of an experience. Okay, this is for the theory part. The long and short of the major schools of philosophy that we have with us. And at the end, I'll leave you with an interesting couplet from Ish Upanishad. It is interesting because it is unhinging our own idea of Vidya and Avidya. It says that those who worship Vidya fall into blind darkness, and those who worship Vidya alone fall into greater darkness. Why it is so? Why so contradictory? I leave it to you. And all right, that is it. So this was our Dwar Pravesh to the Indian logic, and we'll pick up the nitty gritty. Once this framework is set, these conceptual counterparts are understood, the components are understood, then next time we'll go on about the valid and invalid means, the Pramanyavad and Khyativad of this Darshana systems, particularly Nyaya and Vaisheshika. That would be from your syllabus too. It will limit itself to mostly the Nyaya school of philosophy.
So would you stop here?
Yeah.
Okay. So student participants, if you have any questions, please put questions to Dr. Vyas. And if you want to understand something that you have not been able to understand,
Yeah.
yes, tell him. Yes, probably they must have listened to this kind of lecture for the first time in their life.
Okay.
So, naturally, they must be awestruck. And
Uh,
so there can't be questions.
uh,
Okay, so
yes,
yes,
I
anyone?
see one hand
There
raised.
is someone. Dr. Millie Jetwani.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Millie.
How are you? Fine.
Great.
Okay, sir. Sir, now I don't know whether the question is regarding or not, but as you talked about Dvaitva that differentiates, right? So, is there any role of a Dvaitvad into this theory?
Uh, if I get your answer, I question correctly, uh,
Hmm.
each school of thought would employ the the system of logic in its own way. Okay, and scholars spend their lifetime specializing in one or the other school of thought. That is why we would have scholars on Vedanta or Kashmir Shaivism or say Sankhya or Yoga. For example, in the present day, there is a person called Professor Dr. Edwin Brandt. He is an English scholar, and uh, in the present times, I haven't seen somebody so scholarly, uh, informed, and well read, and who has understood the Patanjal Raj Yoga system so well as Dr. Brand, Edwin Brand has. And that is fantastic. And he has spent his career into this. All right. So to come to this part, Dvaitavad, see, in the southern part of our country, the Dvait uh, uh, Shaivism is pretty much in practice, and people study that. Okay. The monotheistic Advait part of Shaivism, Kashmir Shaivism, flourished in Kashmir and in the northern part of India. But sadly, unfortunately, we do not have today a good number of scholars and researchers in this field. But I must say it is fantastic school of thought. If you read its philosophy, it is mind blowing. I mean, so sometimes hair splitting analysis of the world, uh, and sometimes mystical and esoteric. It will take you on a great roller coaster ride. But well, we don't have the scholars and students of that. Dvaitvad, of course, uh, involves um, the school of uh, logic. I mean, the logical inquiry in its own way. But I am not in the know of somebody who has explored this extensively from our region.
Okay, sir. Fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is one Parth Joshi. He has questions.
Yes.
Can we say that the realization of rasa during aesthetic experience is actually yoga pratyaksha?
Hmm. Uh, um, the yoga pratyaksha would take this experience to an even greater height. Uh, the experience of rasa happens at the lokic world. What Abhinav Gupta says that we are not talking about an esoteric or mysterious or mystical experience. For Abhinav Gupta is very clear. The experience of rasa is here and now, and you feel the pulsation, the sensation in your body. When you feel the shantaras, you feel that dopamine insurgence in your mechanism. All right, so to call it yoga pratyaksha would be putting a premium on the term. I wouldn't call it yoga pratyaksha as such, because yoga pratyaksha is a very clear category that it is non-perceptional in the physical sense. It is a heightened consciousness, and it is best had in the states of dharana and samadhi.
Okay. I hope this satisfies Parth. Uh, how does the process of possession work in context of kavya? Is Shabda the actual upadan of kavya?
Well, Shabda is upadan is material cause. Okay, so yes, Shabda is upadan. There is no denying the fact. But then we have to then factor in the instrumental cause and the swatantra shakti of the agent of action, that is the karta. How is he or she going to employ the literary devices, and to what end? What will be the decorum, the prabandh auchitya of the composition one is going to offer? So there are a number of factors involved, but the basic component is this shabda, that is primary upadan, material cause. It is a
Parth,
verbal
you asked.
discourse.
Parth, you asked the question. Second question, Naam Roop Gun.
Yeah, hello, sir. Good morning.
Morning.
Indeed, pleasure to, albeit virtually, meet Maulik sir once again.
Thank you.
So the second question was, sir, if, as you said that to know an object or a padartha, one has to know the naam, roop, gun, and kriya. Shall we say that Bharat Muni's Rasa Sutra encompasses all these four?
Yes, of course.
I mean, is it known through the later commentaries on the Rasa Sutra, or is it inherent in the Rasa Sutra itself?
Well, it's a good question. Yes, Parth. Shall I? Shall I? Shall I continue? Hello.
Anyone else? Here, Jaimin Joshi has a question. Sir, can we relate hedonism with?
Sir, just a moment. I would respond to Parth's query. He put a question. So in the tradition of Rasa Mimamsa, what I proposed is not there. Yes, that rasa is to be understood in the logical terms as a padartha, and that Bharat Muni addresses this inquiry by explaining Naam, Roop, Gun, and Kriya of Ras. It is not in the Ras Mimamsa, and by Ras Mimamsa I mean the tradition where we have Shri Shankuka and Bhattatot, Bhattanayak, all right, Mahim Bhatt, etc. It is not there. But if you apply the set of logical inquiries as we find in the Nyaya school, and we employ it on Bharat Muni's Rasa Sutra, then of course we have the finding there, and we can satisfactorily respond to this. In fact, in my book on literature as knowledge, in that book I have tried to do this.
There is one Jaimin Joshi. Sir, can we relate hedonism with Lokayat tradition?
Well, yes. They are very similar to one another. In fact, in number of occasions we find one-to-one correlations between the Greek and the Indian counterparts. So yes, hedonism is where there is the approach to experience the world as it is, without the expectation of gains in intangible terms hereafter. So that part is there. But yes, please also understand that neither hedonism nor charvak would sacrifice the element of right action or virtue, how to behave in a society. All right, so they are very much good citizens of the nation state, while propounding this thought that they want to enjoy the material world as much as they can.
Vishaka Sharma has a question. Would you recommend any book in
Yeah,
Hindi or in English on Darshan Shastra?
Vishaka, I have a list of books to suggest, but I thought I would save it for our next talk, where at the end I'll mention the books that you will find handy, even in your local libraries and from Internet Archive.
Thank
So
you, sir.
please put up with that until we meet next time.
Sure. So, Dr. Maulik Vyas, it was a very enlightening lecture, and students must have benefited from it. And they must have listened to this kind of lecture for the first time. Some of my students, our students, because we have no philosophy paper or Darshan
Yes,
Shastra
sir.
paper.
You are right. We don't have.
So,
Yeah,
so
I
we have
start.
Western theory,
Yes,
Western philosophy, but not Eastern.
true. Sir,
So,
I am an English literature student, and I have
uh-huh.
passed through the same. Uh,
Yes,
so,
BA, MA.
it took a long while, and I must say, as a satellite point, for a short tenure in Junagadh, which I served in Bowdin Arts College, and sir, I should put it on record. They have a fantastic library on Indian and Western philosophy. And Bowdin Arts College is more than 120 years old. It's very one of the old colleges in the state. And that library has a fabulous collection on philosophy. So if anybody has access to that, please do that. You'll be greatly benefited.
Thank you very much, sir, for suggesting this college, suggesting them to go to that college. So we meet again
Yes,
on
sir.
Monday. Till
27th.
then, on behalf of the student participants, on behalf of the department and my colleagues, I thank you for sparing time for our students. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hmm?